What is good, backloggers? Lies of P is a promising new Souls-like from NeoWiz, the developers of... Actually, I don't think they've really made any notable games apart from a few rhythm titles. They did publish a few decently popular indie games like Skull the Hero Slayer and Plebby Quest though, so at least they have some decent titles under their belt. But never before have they made or even published a Souls-like, a genre that is known not only for its difficulty, but meticulous game and enemy design, where a few hiccups in quality can make the difference between must-play and other crap. At least in the eyes of the very scrutinizing community. The very first trailer already showed us that they certainly nailed a setting and visual feeling akin to Bloodborne, one of the genre's very best and most beloved games, so I, and many other fans, were instantly intrigued when they showcased it in May of 2021. Fast forward over 2 years to Summer Game Fest 2023, where they not only presented a new gameplay trailer and release date, but also shadow dropped a demo that lets you play the first 2 areas of the game without any constraints on time or deaths. As a big Souls-like fan who live streamed all of his first playthroughs of the Dark Souls series and Bloodborne, with Sekiro soon to follow, I couldn't pass up the chance to give this game a few nudges and see if this is, in fact, a new star on the horizon of the genre, or a disaster waiting to be unleashed on the Bloodborne-starved community. Speaking of which, what the hell are you doing with Bloodborne, Sony? Welcome to the Backlog project, where we play through a gigantic backlog of games and you get to choose which one will be covered next. Just head down to the description of the video to take part in our weekly poll and pick your favorite. I won't go full review mode on you, so excuse me if I only graze a topic you'd like to hear more about or discuss more deeply. Feel free to comment on anything you want to talk about or join our Discord for some in-depth discussions. Thanks for understanding. With that said, let's see what Lies of P has in store for us. Right off the bat, there are neither much of a story or a tutorial. You just wake up in a literal train wreckage, being talked to by a mysterious female voice calling herself Sophia without much of an explanation on who or what you are, other than calling you a puppet. She sounds nice enough, so you follow her instructions to meet her at a hotel a few miles off your current location. Of course, it wouldn't be a Souls-like game if the only hurdle in reaching your goal were swollen feet and your way is filled with hostile puppets trying to murder you for some unknown reason. To defend yourself, the train you woke up in conveniently has 3 weapons lying around that you get to choose your favorite from: a sword, a rapier, and a greatsword. After making your choice, you slice or stab your way through some basic enemies on your way to the alluring voice. I say basic, but some of these guys are actually pretty dangerous for early game foes and can easily wreck your robot ass if you're not careful. In good old Dark Souls manner, the levels are linear enough to give you an idea of where to go, but also have a decent number of branching paths that lead you to find new items, enemies, and even side quests. All in all, the exploration feels similar to Dark Souls 3 in that you can't really stray much from the main story path, but aren't restricted enough to the point of it feeling linear. Since the demo only gives you access to the first 2 chapters, and Souls games tend to open up a lot towards the latter half, I'll give this game the benefit of the doubt and expect it to get a bit less linear in the full release. What it shows us thus far is already very good, with paths that are in equal parts vertical and horizontal, leading you on seemingly long treks that smartly wind back close to your original location, unlocking a shortcut and making even the occasional death less punishing due to you always making progress even if you mess up along the way. Speaking of dying, while you do lose your ergo, this game's version of Souls, and are able to pick it back up as soon as you reach your corpse, the game has a nasty little addition to this system. Every time you take damage on your way to your dead puppet body, the number of ergo you can retrieve from it decreases. This increases the stakes of every death and makes you more aware of playing previously cleared sections better than the last time, but it also means that you will always be on edge. I can see this becoming exhausting in the long run, but for the demo it felt like a good way to encourage players to stay at the top of their game. Possibly even more important to a Souls-like game than the level design is the gameplay itself, mainly the combat. Luckily, Lies of P manages to nail that aspect to a point where you could fool me into thinking this is a bona fide FromSoft title. Every swing of your weapon feels weighty and meaningful, while also being fast enough to give you the maneuverability you would expect of a modern action RPG. You can perform light, heavy, and charged heavy attacks that will make genre veterans feel right at home. Obviously inspired by Bloodborne, this game doesn't give you a shield, so dodging is paramount to surviving the many different kinds of attacks enemies will throw at you. You can block, but I found this to be more of a last resort to reduce damage taken from an attack you won't be able to dodge instead of a reliable method of surviving. Blocking at exactly the moment of impact will trigger a perfect block that will negate all damage and let you instantly act, usually giving you a decent chunk of time to get a few hits in. A very high risk but high reward move that will allow seasoned players to decimate health bars in short time, but isn't as broken as parries in Dark Souls or Bloodborne because it doesn't leave your opponents staggered. Speaking of stagger, there is a guard break mechanic in this game fittingly called grogginess that allows for devastating visceral attacks. If you deal a certain amount of damage to an enemy in a short time frame, their health bar will glow white. If you hit a fully charged heavy attack while it does, you will make them enter groggy state, which stuns them for a few seconds and allows you to pull a very satisfying to watch finisher on them. Each move you make, be it running, dodging, or attacking, uses stamina, so managing a steady flow of attacks while keeping just enough stamina on hand to dodge incoming attacks is the key to success, as is tradition in the genre. What sets it apart a little is that most of your moves use up very little stamina, so even at base level you can string together an enormous number of moves. Can't wait to see what endgame combat looks like in this game. Apart from standard attacks, every time you deal or take damage, your Fable gauge will fill, allowing for special moves like a sick sword combo or buffing your weapon for a few seconds to deal more damage. Which type of Fable art you can use depends on the handle and top of your weapon. You can take apart and combine your weapons freely, with the handle dictating the animations and the top the type and amount of damage your weapon will do. This allows for not only an absurd number of combinations, but also enables you to create the weapon of your dreams or your enemy's nightmares. Want to put a greatsword blade on your rapier handle to stab your enemies with crazy range? Or maybe stick the top of your electric bat to your greatsword hilt and swing around a gigantic lightning charged bludgeoning weapon? No problem, all of that is possible, and at least in the demo, there weren't any restrictions as to what you can combine. I talked about the game not giving you a shield, right? Well, that doesn't mean your left arm is left unused. You can modify it to give it special skills. In the demo, there was only one arm available, a hook shot that you can use to pull enemies towards you and stun them, making for an amazing combo tool. The menu for upgrading them did reveal that upgrades will not only make them more powerful, but add different functionality to those arms. So we can expect the full game to have a wide variety of arms with different use cases in battle and exploration. The ergo you collect from defeated enemies or found items, much like in similar games, is used as currency for shops as well as XP for leveling up. After reaching the hotel, you will meet the doll, I mean Sophia, who's a total waifu and definitely not the main reason to play this game. Really. She will let you spend your ergo on her to level up your physicality, level up your stats, ranging from HP and stamina to strength, dexterity, or even the effectiveness of your left arm. There are many things to spend your levels on, and you can adjust your character to the playstyle you enjoy most. The game also features a basic gear and weight system. Besides weapons, you can equip gear like amulets, rings, and other trinkets that will give you better stats, or even buffs like increased stamina recovery, but also increase your weight, making you move and dodge slower. It's not the most innovative system, especially in a genre where every game has this, but it does its job well enough, and you will probably find enough interesting items to allow for a plethora of builds. Visually, the game is very impressive in both art direction as well as graphics. Not only does the world look intimidating, dangerous, and interesting, it also just looks great. Dark corners being hit by beautiful lighting to make you see just enough, rain falling through while the moon is shining in the distance. The whole game is very reminiscent of Bloodborne's early hours in that it is eerily mesmerizing in its beauty, but has its own charm and identity through heavy use of the puppet theme and electricity. intensity. Adding to that dense atmosphere is the beautifully melancholic soundtrack befitting such a dark game world. As is par for the course in Souls-like games, Lies of P doesn't exactly shower you with music. Most of the game will be without it, accompanying players only with ambient sounds of rain, the city, and its inhabiting monsters. When you hit an area that features music though, it gets elevated even further. The serene baroque theme of Hotel Krat, your base of operations in the game, gives it a church-like feeling, the only place you can relax and catch a breather and talk to the survivors of this hostile world, and is in stark contrast to the bombastic boss music, hitting you with a full orchestra and choir right from the very first boss fight, and promising to deliver cacophonic themes one after another that stand toe-to-toe with Sakuraba Motoi and Kitamura Yuka's works on the Soul series. Speaking of which, I can't seem to find who is actually composing this OST, so if any of you could help me in finding that, I would love to hear about them, and if they've done other works in video games. Something few games, even in the Souls-like genre, manage to replicate is the unique way of voice direction the Souls games take, making tone, accents, and quirks shining through a character that is just standing around talking without lots of fancy animation is very hard, especially when the story is so subtle that any comment that might seem important might as well be arbitrary, and the other way around. The English voice actors and directors did a tremendous job so far in capturing that unique charm and giving it their own unique twist. The demo doesn't really give us a lot of exposure to the story, but what is there is interesting to say the least. Different characters with their own motivations intermingling with you, lots of optional dialogue, visual storytelling, and expansive item descriptions lead me to hope that Lies of P will offer us an immersive experience in a world that goes a lot deeper than it might seem on the surface. Last but certainly not least, I want to talk about the 3 bosses that are present in the demo. The Parade Master, the Mad Donkey, and the Scrapped Watchman. All 3 of them very capable foes, only to be defeated by those who are vigilant in their approach and quick to adapt to their moves. Parade Master surprised me with his sheer number of potential moves and combos he can pull off, making this fight a simple but unexpectedly hard reaction and dodge check. Especially his second phase, where he pulls his head out and uses it as a weapon, is not only grotesquely amazing, but also requires you to suddenly dodge a literal barrage of attacks that leave very little opening for retaliation. After beating him, the next boss almost feels a bit too easy. Mad Donkey is nothing more than a very hard-hitting human with a giant-ass saw blade for a weapon. He's surprisingly fast and can quickly become a nuisance with his hard-to-dodge 1-2 combo and him healing his HP on every hit, but is easy to deal with once you figure out that you can backstab him whenever he charges his big hit. The last of our 3 stooges of deadly encounters is the Scrapped Watchman, or as I like to call him, the Abomination Child of Cleric Beast and Dark Beast Par. He is big, fast, hits you with arms you can barely see due to his size, and his spider-like build allows him to quickly jump in and out of your hit and camera zone. As if that wasn't enough, he also has a second phase at 50% health, seems like this is becoming the norm in Souls-likes, in which he envelops himself, and thus each of his attacks, with lightning. Not only does he now deal more damage, the lightning status effect also decreases your stamina recovery. Very annoying. To top it all off, each of his hits now summon a lightning strike a few seconds after he hit the ground, so while dodging into his attacks and getting a few hits in was a safe and simple strategy to dealing some extra damage before, you're now actively punished for playing aggressively. The bosses are well designed, with each of them very much teaching you about different mechanics of the game to prepare you for what's to come. Where Parade Master requires you to make use of dodging and iframes, Donkey shows you the importance of grogginess and backstabs, while Scrapped Watchman trains you to keep an eye out for perfect parry opportunities and status effects. With fun, challenging, and varied boss fights being one of the big drawing points of Souls games, this is often one of the biggest weak points of other games in the genre, and I am very happy to say they nailed it. I am excited. Very excited. Almost everything in this demo screams quality Souls-like experience, very much encroaching on the quality you would expect from nothing but an original FromSoft title. While it's not perfect, and there are some small things I found could be improved, like for example how easily you can get stuck on debris or enemies while dodging, this demo is a very strong and reassuring showing of a game that many people were cautiously excited for. I for one think NeoWiz expertly showed off that they can handle the big footsteps they chose to follow, if they are able to keep up the quality shown in the demo throughout the whole experience, and I think this game goes a lot deeper than the things we got to taste so far. Seems like the Bloodborne influence runs deep, and that is a good thing.